Welcome to the Executive Alliance podcast. I'm Rebecca Snyder, Executive Director of Executive Alliance. In each episode, alternating hosts Christine Walsh and myself will sit down with accomplished women leaders in Maryland to explore the journeys that shaped them, the challenges they overcame, and the insights they've gained along the way. We'll also tackle the issues that influence women's leadership today, from opportunities for growth and advancement to the systems and barriers that can stand in our way. Through authentic conversations and shared experiences, we're building a community where women learn from one another, support one another, and move forward together. We're glad you're here. Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm delighted to have in our studio Stephanie Bagley, who is the founder and CEO of SCB Management Consulting, which is a Baltimore-based strategy and implementation consulting firm. So, Stephanie, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Rebecca.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you because not only are you this amazingly accomplished woman working in Baltimore, helping organizations navigate transformation and improve performance, but you also, near and dear to my heart, are the treasurer of Executive Alliance. So
Yes.
we get to work together in a lot of different capacities. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited to get to know you a little bit more about in your world.
Very good.
Um, so you've had a tremendous number of years in corporate leadership. You've
Mhm.
consulted in Big Four,
Mhm.
and you have done so many things in the world, and then you launched your own management consulting firm. So tell me, and you were successful in what you were doing, but what made you think now is the time? I think
Yeah.
a lot of women kind of hover on that precipice of like, things are going really well, but I still feel like there's something out there for you. So tell me about that reinvention and when that happened.
Right. Well, I've had the benefit of a couple of reinventions, but that one in particular was about a life inflection point. I had done corporate
Mhm.
relocations for 20 years after business school, and my last corporate relocation took me to Philadelphia. My children were graduating from high school and going off to
Mm.
college, and I was thinking about family. And families in Maryland and wanted to relocate back home. So I thought about, do I go and get another job? And then I had been doing some soul searching probably about 6 months to a year before that. I actually took a strength finders again. I had done it before, but took a strength finders and consulting just
Mhm.
kept bubbling up. I'm a problem solver. I love figuring out creative solutions to the things that people are experiencing. And so literally I just decided, you know what, instead of me going and getting another job, whether it's a big four consulting or a corporation, let me just see what would happen if I do for myself what I've been doing for corporations for decades now, which was saving them a lot of money and really streamlining operations. So that's what I did.
So was that hard? Like, how was that to sort of apply all those tactical skills on behalf of someone else to like turn that inward and start?
Hmm.
Because it is, as a small business owner, you are building the plane as you're
Yep.
flying it.
Yep.
You're looking, you're making it look right and acting on your skills for others. So like,
Yep.
how was that shift?
Yep. The consulting part itself was easy because I had done consulting before. So I knew how I would deliver for my clients. I would say then we all know the next big part is getting the clients. I was
Sure.
extremely fortunate. Um, just so happened to have a conversation with one of my business school colleagues who I had always stayed in contact with. We were just friends, right? Our kids were the same age. you know, I mentioned what I was doing and so through relationships, she's like, "Oh, she had started her own consulting firm. She was doing federal government contracting in the DC area." And she said, "Hey, send me your resume if something comes up. I'll give you a call." 24 hours later, she texted me and said, "Send me your resume. I think I have a project." That turned into 5 years of nonstop billable work.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
it
And
just Yeah, go ahead.
at your 10-year anniversary, gosh, was it last fall?
No, it's
Sans
actually in
time.
January
Oh my gosh.
15th of
Okay,
this
so
year. Yeah.
so congratulations again
Thank
on
you.
10 years, but I think she spoke at that
Yes,
event.
that's right.
And so I think, you're right. It's that power of relationships
Yep,
and sort of building bridges and seeing where people can
that's
really
right.
help one another.
That's right.
And I feel like that idea of service kind of permeates everything that you do. And of course, Executive Alliance is a direct beneficiary of that service. But
Mhm.
tell me about some of the other things that you do, because I think that service mindset,
Yep,
when you look at your website, the idea of how can we help you
that's right.
rather than like, how can we fix your problem
Right.
or, whatever, that kind of permeates everything you do. So tell me more about that.
Right. Well, I probably put myself in the shoes of my clients, right? I was there. I mean, someone at that leadership level, C-suite, that next level down, director level, especially today, but it's been probably since the beginning of the time, do more with less, right? So there's
Mm,
always budget constraints. So you have to think strategically, advancing your organization forward while maintaining the day-to-day operations. And so sometimes you just don't have those internal resources, whether it's the skill set or the capacity. And so we come in with that mindset, right? Having been in their shoes. So two things. One, I'm able to pay it forward. So what my mentor did for me, my first client did for me, I now do for others. I bring in other small businesses to be my partners. So I have a core set of employees at the project management, but I bring in subject matter experts all the time who are other small business owners. And so we
mm.
come in with that perspective of, how can we help you? Because we know you have a lot on your plate. We can bring the skill set, we can bring the capacity from two perspectives. Most of my clients or my partners also have had that internal leadership experience and consulting. So there's no cookie cutter framework, right? We can tailor our solutions to meet their specific needs. So it is very rewarding to be able to come in and literally relieve um, a corporate leader, government leader who is just stretched thin with a lot on their plate. So yeah.
Well, and it strikes me like when hearing you talk through that it's very much that you're slotting into someone else's vision. And I think
Mhm.
sometimes when there's a consultant in the world, they're like, let me give you my report and
Mm,
my thoughts.
yeah.
And it feels like you're really listening first and then
Mhm.
saying, here are the things that we can truly, slot in or help you
Right.
do.
Yeah.
Am I getting that right?
Absolutely. And so sometimes, we do strategic planning, right? And so we come in and we identify who the key stakeholders are. We make it a very collaborative process. We go through the SWOT analysis. We bring all that together and say, hey, this is what we heard, right? And let's bump it up against what your vision is and let's see what you can and cannot do. Sometimes we're actually then brought in to help them implement that strategic
Mhm.
plan because yes, we want to take on these actions. We just don't have the resources. Right. But then sometimes, they do have the resources and we lay out a very detailed roadmap for them that they can use that, let's say it's an Excel spreadsheet, they can use that really to track their success. We give them the KPIs and those sorts of things. So it's always a very collaborative effort. What we also do though is, we bring in our experience working across different industries, working within their industries. We do benchmarking to say, this is where you are. This is what your peers are doing as well. That's typically very rewarding. Sometimes we go out and collect it. One of our recent clients, we actually brought them into some of the interviews with. This is a state client. We brought them
Mhm.
into the interviews with some of the other states, and they heard for themselves what some of their peers are doing across the country. So yeah.
That's actually I love the way you do that, and it feels like a leadership journey there in some
Mhm.
respects
Yeah.
because, I think we've all thought, "Oh gosh, I wanna take my next step in my
Mhm.
leadership journey," or whatnot, and maybe
Yeah.
you're trying to fit yourself into like, "Oh, I should do this, this, and this."
Mm,
But you're really kind of turning that upside down and then saying, "Where do you want to go, and how can
right.
we create tools that
Right.
help you get there?" So
Correct.
when you're thinking about your own leadership journey,
Yep.
what does that trajectory look like? Because you've been a female leader in a kind of male-dominated world. Management
Mm,
consulting is not exactly Woman Spirit USA.
right.
Like, how did you chart your path?
Yeah.
Or
It's so
did you chart? I mean, sometimes we're it's like
right.
serendipity and you just fall into the next thing.
It really has been much more of that. I'll be honest with you. For me, it started in business school. I was just never this cookie cutter person. I remember I was a little bit older when I went to business school. Had the good fortune of getting a full fellowship for Duke University and got my
Yeah.
MBA there. And I remember, and again, I had already been working. I had been a manager for quite some time, and usually people back then, people picked a track. It was operations or finance. And I'm like, well, I like both. And people were like, you're going to kill yourself if you don't go in and you're not specific. So I had offers from Wall Street, all different industries. I was just honest. And I think for me, being authentic with where my gifts were, where my interests were. And for me, it was really about problem solving. And to me, operations and finance always have to align, right?
Mhm.
And so most of my opportunities came because I always came with that perspective. I came with an open mind. And so my first job after consulting, after business school, um, I actually ended up heading up corporate audit. And most people would say, corporate audit. But my leadership started because I like to have the big picture.
Mm.
And um, I was present I literally, reached I was living in Philadelphia then, reached out, because I was ready to leave consulting. It wasn't conducive to the lifestyle of a mother, young mother, and,
Sure.
they offered me t to interview for 2 roles because they told me I was too seasoned for their leadership development program,
Mhm.
but they wanted to find something for me, and so, I had, an interview with investor relations and one with corporate audit, and I
Mm.
could pick which one I wanted. I ended up picking corporate audit. It was an operational audit. It wasn't like the external auditors. It was an operational role. I was getting to create the department. It was new. They
Mm.
needed to split off international from everything else. The existing director was going to keep international, and they wanted me to create an organization that looked over the rest of the entire organization. And I found that exciting.
That is
So,
exciting. Overwhelming, but
yeah,
exciting too.
it was a tremendous opportunity. My next role, I had to do a, corporate relocation because of my family back to Maryland. I've been back and forth a few times. Um, Posted my resume on one of these new job boards called Hot Jobs. I'm dating myself, Rebecca. And, like, within 2 weeks, I got picked up by Coventry Healthcare. They, saw my resume, and literally, they wanted me to create their new risk management organization. I'll be honest with you, Rebecca, I interviewed for the job. I don't even remember what I said. They offered me the position, and I told this was the vice president of actuary who was responsible for risk management. I was like, "And why do you want to hire me? Why do you think I can do this job?" So I kind of reversed the interview, and he's like, you can identify risk. You can create organizations. You're evidently, smart because you have your MBA and that sort of thing. So that was another opportunity to create a brand new organization. And then after
Mhm.
that, I got recruited to come back to Cigna in Philadelphia, which is where I ended up for 11 years to head up their much risk organization that was about 10 times larger. I had worked with the CFO when I was there before, and he asked HR to find me and come back and transform that organization under his leadership. So I didn't have a plan.
Mhm.
And I was just very open minded, took on new opportunities when they arose. Every time I actually had, my organization under me grew. And, quite frankly, I probably grew my leadership skills as I went, right? A lot of it was trial and error, of course, taking executive development courses and that sort of thing. But a lot of my journey has been because I was just open minded and people presented opportunities to me.
Well, and all this discussion of risk makes me wonder, do you like to take on like, what's your perspective on risk? Like, for me,
Yeah.
I like stability and I like
Mm,
security, but I
mm,
also like change, and
mhm,
so
mm.
I will step out and do different things, but I, like, layer contingency plans in as a
Yeah,
self-soothing mechanism.
right.
So, how are you able to, like, take risks because you've moved, you've taken on huge projects that maybe
Yeah,
you didn't really have an idea that how you were gonna do it.
yeah.
How do you get the courage to take risks?
Yeah. That's so interesting, Rebecca, because as soon as you said that, it just kind of brought back a memory in my head. So, first of all, I guess I don't probably see them as risk. I honestly see them as opportunities. It's
Hmm.
just probably the way my brain works. But I remember so I'm a non traditional student. I had to work after high school. My parents didn't have the money for college. I had graduated in the top 5% of my class. I lived in a part of Maryland. Nobody was talking about scholarships or anything else. So, I had to work right after high school.
Because you're from Southern Maryland,
I'm
right?
from Southern Maryland. Things have changed, thankfully, because I've been kinda keeping, in touch and that sort of so thankfully, kids down there have a lot more opportunities today, but I had to work, and I had managed to work myself into, again, a manager role. I didn't ask for it, but I got tapped. She's still my mentor today. She lives out in Phoenix, Arizona, and she said, "Hey, I'd like to take for you to take on this marketing management role," and I'm like, I said yes, but I'm telling you, Rebecca, the first time I walked into my new office, I was like, "Oh my god, what have I done?" Right? And I had these major projects. One, I had to represent we were a government contractor. I had to represent us, with Northrop Grumman. I had to
Hmm.
go sit at the table and represent our interests on this joint deal. And then the other was I had this huge trade show that I had to put together, and this was all within my first 6 months. And I remember getting through those successfully. And at that moment, I was like, "You know what? You can figure out anything." I just told myself that. You can figure out anything. And I think that has just stuck with me. I've just been extremely blessed. I really have. I don't think it's all just me. I think I've been really, really fortunate. But I guess I just see things as opportunities as opposed to um, challenges or risk. And I think I'm able to bring that same perspective to my clients
Hmm.
because every day, corporations, government agencies, they do have to balance risk and reward. But if you don't take on some of those opportunities or risk, whatever you want to call them, you'll never move your organization forward. So, yeah,
Hmm.
I'm able to bring that perspective.
Well, and it feels like you have this sort of innate confidence. And you also, it sounds like in your conversations, um, that so many people have supported you and like that you had a mentor from early on. I mean, you went from high school straight into the working world.
Hmm.
When did you loop back and do college? And I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
Duke
Hmm.
Business School, it's nothing to sneeze
Yeah.
at. Like,
Yep.
what made you decide
Yep.
I'm going to go for that and I need that?
Yep. So when I got promoted into that first management role, newspaper, right? We didn't have internet back then. I literally, so I was on my own, right? Had my own expenses. And I looked in the newspaper and I said, if this job went away, I said, this is great. But if this job went away, would I be able to get one comparable? And when I
Mm,
looked in the newspaper, all of them required a degree. So I
mhm,
decided at that moment I was going to go back and get my degree. And so I didn't know if I was going to get accepted or not, but I submitted my application to the University of Maryland because I said, you know what, if I do it, I'm going to get my 4 year. And again, things are different now with community college. They make it so much easier to transition
mhm,
into the 4 year, but it wasn't that way then. I knew people were losing credits. Didn't want that to happen.
right.
So my company I got accepted. My company was super supportive. I didn't even know about the night school when I first enrolled. And
Mhm.
my very first semester, I took daytime classes. Our company was out in Annapolis. I lived in Prince George's County, so I
That's
made
a
it
lot
to,
of travel.
oh, yeah. So, but you know what? Again, it is before I had children. I did get married along the way. And so I wish I remember someone along the way said, don't stop. Right?
Mhm,
Because especially as adults, I guess they knew that it could get in the way of things. And so I remembered that. I wish I remember who said that. That was the best advice. I took that and ran with it. I went to school, and it was different. There was no
mhm,
online. We were in class, 7
right.
to 10 for every class. And I went every spring, summer, fall, nonstop, usually 3 classes at a time, maybe more.
That's a
Um,
really heavy load, working full time as well.
And I worked full time, and I did it in 5 years.
That's impressive,
I was
but you did
motivated,
it.
Rebecca.
I bet, I
I
bet.
was motivated. I was motivated. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was motivated.
And then is that why you decided on business school? You felt like you needed to level up again? Because I love
Yep,
that idea of you ascertained what the gap was, and then
right. Yeah,
consciously moved to close that gap.
yeah,
So how did Duke
yeah,
fit in?
yeah. So a couple of things. One, then was ready for the next relocation again, family, to New Jersey. I was in the getting ready to start my very last semester at the University of Maryland. I had to negotiate with the counseling office to take my final classes. Thankfully, they weren't any part of my majors. They were mostly extracurricular, but I ended up taking finance classes and stuff at Rutgers. So they approved it
Mm,
because I really had met most of my requirements. But was like, okay, well, let me use the opportunity to try to do something different. And I did some cold calls to all the big accounting firms. End up getting myself a couple of interviews, and I got an offer from Deloitte and PwC. So I spent my last semester actually doing accounting, which was
mhm,
fine. That was my major. But then along the way, I just started thinking, and I had met more people, right? More exposure by this time. And I knew I was going to have to get my MBA. And again, so I had the work experience. And so I started researching, met someone on vacation that told me about some programs to kind of help people figure out the application process. And one of them was at Duke University. It was just a workshop, just kind of go and learn about the process. So I said, okay, I'll apply to that. Well, I got accepted. And while
mhm.
I was there, again, this was all very new to me. I didn't have the traditional interviewing, you know, research careers, none of that experience. And so, we just had different activities. They had career panels. It was great. At the end, they actually told me, we'd love for you to apply. I'm like, really? And I had no intention of going. I lived in New Jersey with my
Right.
husband. I intended to go. I was going to, and I did apply NYU, Columbia. I was going to commute into the city. And I did get accepted into Columbia, but I got accepted into Duke.
Mhm.
And then they gave me a full fellowship.
Oh, and that's compelling for sure.
Oh, that was a no brainer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was very so I got to flip it. I got to go to business school full time. And yeah, it really did change the trajectory of my life
I'm
between
sure.
relationships and just the credentials and, the education has just been phenomenal. And I'll be honest with you, when I moved to Baltimore all these years later, they have a great network. And I tapped into it. So Karen Bond,
Mhm.
I met
Exac
her, and then I learned about Executive Alliance. So it's the relationships have just been phenomenal. So yeah.
Well, and I wanted to go back to relationships and building your
Yeah, yeah,
network
yeah.
because as a woman leader, that's critical. And so when you're consciously trying to build that network and you have
Uh-huh.
such an open way about you, you're so
Mhm.
easy to talk to. But do
Thank you.
you have strategies on
Mhm.
how you build the network you need rather than, most of us kind of go through the world and you're like, "Hi, go over here," and, it's all very organic. Do you feel like you have a are you building the network you want, or how does that come together for you?
I'm probably more the way you just described. Hi. So, in all honesty, the reason I first went to a Duke women's event where I was getting emails is because before this was, I had moved to Maryland, and for the 18 years before that, most of my network was built around my children, right? 'Cause
Mm.
outside of work,
Oh,
they
yeah.
had activities, and all of those women are sometimes my colleagues today, but just even personally, or they know what I'm doing and they spread the word. It's just very organic. And so when I came here, I realized, okay, there are no baseball teams and
There's
right
no play dates.
tennis teams. And if I want to meet people, I actually have to be intentional. So I went to a Duke event, which was actually so much fun. It was the Fabergé exhibit at the Walters all those
Oh,
years
that
ago.
was a great exhibit,
Yeah, it
yeah.
really was, right? So for me, it's been very organic.
Mhm.
And I'll be honest with you, another woman that I met through Duke, and because it goes both ways, right? It's just like I love meeting really good people. I have two interns here with me right now. They come
Mhm.
from the Bridges program. Anita
Mm.
Hilson is actually a Duke grad as well.
Oh, I
That
didn't know that.
yeah, that I end up meeting, and she reached out a couple of months ago and said, "Hey, we have a we want to place some of our interns. Would you be willing to host a couple?" I'm like, "Sure." So I'm teaching them about consulting and project management and all those sorts of things over the next couple weeks. So, for me, relationships are really organic. Like
Mhm.
Did I think my first client was gonna be my business school colleagues? No, when we graduated, we all had so much in common. We started this book club, we called it Our Time because we all had little kids, so once a month, we'd get together for brunch. We never had time to read the books, but we had a really good time getting together. But so I just built really organic relationships with people that I just truly like, and guess what? Sometimes opportunities come from them, and now, they actually are subcontractors for me, and, it just kinda goes it's very organic for me. It's like I just get to meet really good people, and if we can do work together, if I can help you in any way, I'm so happy to. Um, yep, so there's a
Mhm.
young lady, Annie, she's coming with me tomorrow to the baseball game. Been introducing her to, met her through the Center Club, been introducing her to Executive Alliance. She's been a consultant for me. She has her own small business. So she's been doing consulting for me, as well over the last few years. So it's just all very organic.
And it feels like you bring people that you like around you that you have things maybe in common with,
Mhm.
and not with the predisposed, like, this is how it will work out, but just
Right.
literally staying open
Yeah.
and seeing those possibilities.
Right. I think it's true. I think that everyone can remember that people like to work with people that they like, know, and trust.
Mhm.
I think that's really what it comes down to. And that, to me, that's very organic. So when you know, I, I'm an introvert as well. So when I go to an event, I'm usually not going to be that one in the center of the crowd. I'm usually going to, be off talking to one or two people because that's just what's comfortable for me. And I think that's what kind of leads to that organic relationship. Because usually, especially we have a good conversation, like, wow, let's get together and let's have lunch. Let's have coffee, let's go have
Mhm.
happy hour, whatever it is. Let's go to the baseball game tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I do find, like, when because you are especially in the professional world, when you're, like, building relationships,
Hmm.
like, if you don't get to know the actual person, that that is such a superficial
Right.
relationship,
Right.
and so making that extra effort to have coffee or
That's
go to an event together,
right.
really deepens that.
Mhm.
And it feels like, you are in a position to mentor a lot of the next generation. And,
Mhm.
at Executive Lines, we're a lot about peer mentoring as well, because
Yeah.
everyone has something to give and everyone has something to receive. And it feels like you've had a lot of mentors in your life. So
Mhm.
tell me about that process. I mean, it's always felt very awkward to, like, I'm never going to trot up to someone and be like, will you be my mentor?
Right.
And I think a lot of women are nervous about that, but
Mhm.
there's such a, not a pressure, but everyone's like, oh, you need a mentor.
Yeah.
So how did that work for you, and what, and how do you pay it forward now?
Yeah. So I don't think I've ever had an official mentor. I just had really good people that I worked with who looked out for me. So one, I use them as role models. And then, reaching back if I have a question here and there, and then vice versa. I do remember when I had my first risk management job and one of these huge projects that got put on my plate the day after that I had no idea. And someone said, oh, reach out. And this was at when I was at Cigna. They're like, "Oh, reach out to your peer at Aetna." Reached out to him, and he ended up becoming a one. His name is Mike Kane. He's retired now. He became a wonderful mentor for me. So sometimes women, sometimes men. It's about and we hit it off in that first conversation, and we end up helping each other. So I end up doing something that he had never done, and we end up forming this round table of all of our peers in the healthcare industry that lasted
Mm.
for several years while I was at Cigna.
Oh, that's
So
such
I
an
would
interesting way to go. I like
Oh,
that.
I know. Again, very organic, right? It's just like I'm just so authentic. I'm just very authentic and I have a question. I have no idea what this is. Can you help me? Right. And then you end up talking and talking about people's kids and you just find out other ways that you can naturally help somebody. It's not tit for tat. It's not keeping score. It's just, for me, it's just always been extremely organic. And I think how I'm able to pay it forward when I was in corporate America, I would mentor people. I remember this one young lady, she came to me after a meeting. She was like, "You are the first woman I've seen in one of these meetings. Like, can we have coffee sometime?" I'm like, "Absolutely." Right. And we would start having coffee like once a week. And now in the business world, it ends up being so when we did Mentor in the Room, I had women who came to my
Mhm.
table who were really interested in they were at the precipice of, "Do I start my own business?"
Mm,
Or, "I had started my own business. How do I get new clients?" And I've actually have follow-ups with just about every one of them. And I'm like, "Give me a call. Let's talk about, what you're doing." Um, it's just why not, right? Like, there's probably a lot, and I've been very fortunate. I have a lot of lessons learned, right? Like paying people to do my website who had no idea what they're doing. So my first recommendation for everybody is use referrals.
yeah.
Use other people who have had success with people. Now we have ratings and stuff that we didn't have before. So I've made some mistakes. I want to make sure I pass that forward to people so they don't make some of the same mistakes I did. And then the
Mhm,
other piece, when I'm meeting, especially people who want to go into consulting, I'll be honest with you, I'm looking at them, I'm helping them answer a question, but maybe they could be a partner, right?
right.
Like, maybe they have a skill set that complements mine, helps me with capacity building. Do we align on our values, how we approach our clients, how we treat our clients? And they could be potentially a partner for me as well. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I'm looking at
I
things
love
like
it.
that.
That abundance mindset, I think, is
Oh,
really
mm,
critical that, you're not seeing people who are in that same vein that you're working
oh,
in as competitors, but you're
oh,
seeing
yes.
them as potential partners. Is that right?
Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I definitely believe, like, we're stronger together. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so in the course of your career, you've really stepped into a lot of spaces where there was, like, intense transformational change. And so as a leader, how do you manage that change and
Mm.
still, I guess, put people first? You still have to get the
Yeah.
work done, but
Yeah.
you are a very warm person. So I can't imagine that you're just like, we're all about the process and not the people. But like, how do you integrate it and
Yeah.
what are some of your lessons learned in that
Yeah.
kind of change?
Yeah, there's definitely lessons learned. Also, I went through training, right? So I'm a certified, change management specialist because the people
Mhm.
are really important. I've actually seen it firsthand, you know, organizations that have had the same systems for 20 years and we've always done it this way, right?
Mhm.
So it really actually has to start with the people. When I come in and working with especially senior leadership, that message has to start from the top down, right? And that's how I'm working with my clients. Let us put together a communication plan for you. You identify the early adopters, right? And the people of influence, right? So there's this whole strategy around it. But if you don't bring the people along, it's not going to work, and so that is super important. So when I look at my clients' organization, they might think they want me to help them implement a system or fix a process. But no, we're looking at people, process, and technology. You have to, because otherwise you can change all you want. But if you don't have the adoption, it's not going to be successful.
Yeah.
Mm,
How do you get people to adopt? I mean, it's I think people call it like buy-in or whatnot, but it feels very like pushing on to someone else when you say
mm,
it that way. So how do you involve the
yeah.
people and still get the process
Yeah,
done?
well, you start out by finding out what their pain points are, right? And then as you find out the pain points at the leadership level, at the management level, at the staff level, right? Then one, you have to fix their problems. And
Mhm,
then two, you know, tell them with this transformation, what's it going to do for them? Right. And it always sounds easier
mhm.
said than done. I'll be honest with you, especially today when you think about AI, right? Or any kind, we implement a lot of
Yeah,
enterprise
so
resource
scary.
planning systems like Workday. We're on the City of Philadelphia project to implement Workday. We looked at Baltimore City's Workday realization after the fact to see if they were able to achieve what they wanted. Oracle, all those big systems. And it sounds
Mhm.
easier said than done. People get concerned that they're gonna lose their job, right? And so that's always a tough one.
Sure.
So that
It's
mess yeah.
scary.
Yeah, it's very scary. And so a lot of times we're talking about, what's in it for them, right? So use the opportunity. I've done change management trainings, right? Like figure out how to help them not just survive, but thrive, right? Hey, if they're implementing AI, start learning AI, right? because there's always that human
Mhm,
element that's still needed. Think about how you can start reinventing yourself. You have a lens into this new world where the organization's going. How could you fit in? What are some of your strengths that you could bring to the table? Right? Knowledge of the company. How can you, volunteer to me, maybe a part of um a focus group or leading some part of the initiative. At the end of the day, we're looking for the change agents, right? So whenever we're implementing a system, we call them like super users. They're the ones that get trained
mhm,
early and first. How we identify them are the ones when we sit at that initial table interviewing them about what their pain points. We're looking for people who are open to change and open to opportunities and bringing forth the ideas. So we try to position it that you have control over your career. Right? That's all you have control over in your mindset. So let us help you and you work with us on how we can kind of implement this change. So,
it just strikes me as you were talking, like, that seems like philosophically how you have organized your professional life, that you've
mm,
been so open to change and sort of thinking and being grounded in the skills that you have and the
mm,
attitudes that you have and saying,
mhm,
"Okay, I have these things, how can I apply it to this situation? Or how can I take
right,
advantage of that opportunity?"
right.
I I mean, that feels like your in some ways, your professional philosophy. Is that right?
It is. And then you say, I don't have everything. So how do I
Mhm,
bring people to the table who have the skills that I don't have? Right. So
mhm,
I'm actually getting ready to start this sustainability project. So I have project management, I have change, I have transformation. I'm bringing in an environmental sustainability partner that I met through my Goldman
mm,
Sachs class. Right. So that's with everything. Every leader has to identify, what are you really good at? Some people are good, they're visionaries. Right. And then what are you not good at or don't like, right? Maybe you don't like the tactical stuff. Bring in somebody who's a good process person, a really good operations. Because here's what I know: I don't have everything, so I have to bring in people who complement me. So yeah.
mhm. And I
Hmm.
also feel like you're such a lifelong learner. So not only did
Hmm.
you go back to college, you did business school, you went through the Goldman Sachs program. Last year, you went through the Executive Alliance Quick Start program. And so,
Right.
is that all about sort of closing the gap, the skill and knowledge gaps that you see? Or, I mean, you're also just naturally curious, but tell me a little bit about that idea of lifelong learning.
Yeah, I think it is a lot of it is just being curious. And I think there's just that awareness, like, went back and got, I think it was during COVID, I think I got my change management certification, right? It's just that awareness that sometimes, you need that additional education behind you, um,
Mhm.
credentials behind you, you know, and it's just that infinite curiosity. So, and I'll be honest with you, I'm one of these people. I would rather kind of go through a program. My hat's off to people who can do 100% of their education online, self
Mm,
study. It's so interesting because I am an introvert, but I like the people interaction. And so I actually
mhm,
like it when courses are kind of a little bit hybrid. You always have to do your own study, but I like when there's that interaction because you learn so much from other people, right? When people raise their
right.
hand and give an example of something they've been through, how they've solved a problem, I think there's so much opportunity to learn from other people. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's a little bit of
absolutely.
both. Hmm.
Well, so then what's next? Is there something stirring in your soul for you've done um a lot of different things. The world keeps changing. Sort of what's next for you?
Yeah. So, I'm actually in the middle of next, right? I had a plan. I had this whole growth plan. And then, quite frankly, thankfully, I was diversified across multiple industries, not just federal government. A lot of times here, especially
Mm,
in the DMV area, they say, dive into one sector. And people have done that. In 2019, I was still kind of a solopreneur, and that's when federal government shut down then. I thought to myself, oh my God, what if I had people working for me? This is crazy. And so I was
right.
intentionally diversified across different sectors. So I'll be honest with you, when Doge hit last year, I was so thankful to be across sectors. And so I had to pivot as well, right? There was a lot of, my revenue coming in from the federal government. So quite frankly, I'm actually in the middle of next and I'm really refining that partnership strategy because my
Mhm.
plan, prior to that was really to kind of grow my team. And so I'll be honest with you, I'm in the middle of next. And so for me, next, how do I take next into planning for retirement? So I'm not sure if I'll ever retire, but maybe semi
Right.
retire. What might that look like
Mhm.
with this model? Now, if I don't have all these people working for me, if I have this partnership network, maybe this just becomes my semi retirement plan. So that's probably what's next for me. And then how can I continue helping other people? That model really excites me. If I can constantly help other small businesses grow what they call gain their past performance working under me, and then they kind of get their legs, and then sometimes it's vice versa, just like I bring my original partners in, now they do work with me, and so it's just become this really nice ecosystem. So that's actually, I'm in the middle of next right now. My son got married last year, so I'm expecting maybe in a few years I'll be a grandmother. It'll free up some time to do
Cross
that. So
fingers. Mhm.
but yeah, I really enjoy what I do. I can't ever see myself truly stop doing this. I'll be doing it in one way or another, like maybe, get a board position where I can kind of bring all these years of experience in corporate and consulting, bring it to the table for, a nice mid-size company that really wants to grow and looking for some strategic help with that. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And so in as you kind of look through that trajectory and sort of where you wanna go next, what do you think you would tell your younger self?
Hmm. I've actually asked that question a lot of times because, wonder like, gosh, I wish I had the wherewithal to know how to go and search and done the traditional college. But, at some point, Rebecca, you say to yourself, everything happens for a reason. I
Sure.
think my trajectory, quite frankly, led me to Duke. They were very much looking for, a diverse student body. I came with a completely different story. Did my essay
Mhm.
of working while I went full time and moving into management and those experiences that I had where I was able to go to school at night and apply them the next day. That probably led to my fellowship, And then, every journey that I've taken, it's kind of hard not to say everything happens for a reason. The one thing I wish that I had, I know you have this, is more sales and marketing experience before I started my business. That has been a little bit more to kind of uncover and figure out.
Mhm.
I've just been blessed because it's been organic how I've gained my clients. But sometimes I do wish like, oh, if I had one thing to do differently, maybe I would have gone and got a real sales and marketing job before I started my business and really
Mhm.
learned all those skills. So yeah.
Well, it's you're always looking at the thing like, "Oh, here's the gap that I need to close," but there's so many other gaps that you did close. Where would
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
sometimes when you look around like, "Oh, I wish I had that skill or whatnot,"
Mhm.
like, would that have held you back? It
Yeah.
didn't held you back
Right.
from launching the business,
Right.
and so in some ways, like, how do you get off
Yeah.
the how do you make the jump? Like, when do you
Mhm.
have enough, and as I
Right.
was sipping my tea, I was, reminded of my strength finders, which, through our Executive Alliance program,
Yeah.
we put on mugs for people, and
Yeah.
one of my strengths is input, which basically means
Mhm.
that I like to have a lot of data,
Mhm.
luckily, balanced by activator as a strength, but,
Mhm.
like, if you how do you know when to make the jump on things?
Yeah.
And
I
what would
think
you say to a woman who's, like, on that precipice?
yeah. I actually said this, I think it was last week when I followed up with one of the women from, mentoring in the room. Go with your instinct, right? When it feels right, when you're not concerned, that's when you make the move, right? And everybody's gonna
Mhm,
be different. You're gonna get all kinds of advice from people, but when you feel like you've checked the boxes you need to check or that you don't need to check those boxes, right? I said, if you have the money, great, go out, but, line up that first client. But at the end of the day, follow your instinct. And I'll be honest with you, my mug, I don't have it, is actually at home, is enjoy the journey. That's
I
my
like
motto
that.
that I live by every day. So, be smart, definitely be strategic, right? Kind of come up with your own strategic plan, but I don't think anybody can decide for someone else. I think, you know, we were given this gift of instinct, and that's kind of what think I have followed. Um, when you don't listen to it, when something's telling you not to do it, that's probably when you get yourself in trouble. But when your gut is telling you, you know what, let's give this a try. I'm ready. I can do this. Um, then I would say, follow your instinct
And enjoy the journey. Those
and
are
enjoy the journey.
amazing words to end with. Thank you
Mhm.
so much, Stephanie, for coming to
You're
talk to me. This has
welcome.
been
Well, thank
terrific.
you. Thank you for having me, Rebecca. This has been fun. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Executive Alliance podcast. We hope today's conversation inspired you, challenged you, and reminded you that leadership is a journey best traveled together. Executive Alliance is a catalyst for women leaders in Maryland. We believe in advancing women's representation at the highest levels of leadership in business, civic organizations, and government. To learn more about our programs, events, and membership opportunities, visit executivealliance.org. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share it with a colleague, and leave a review. It helps us continue to amplify the voices, experiences, and impact of women leaders. Until next time, remember that every woman has something to teach and something to learn, something to offer and something to receive. When we recognize the value and potential in one another, we become stronger leaders, stronger organizations, and a stronger community. Keep reaching forward, reaching back, and bringing more women into the light.